Got it.
All right. Looks like people are joining. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Summer Multicultural Symposium with NAMI California. My name is Ragini Lal. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at NAMI California. Today we also have Tiffany Ross, who is a keynote. We have Ania Townsell. She's going to be facilitating help with our breakout session later today. Maria Alanis as well. And then Brianna Vargas. She's the Director of Community Engagement of NAMI California. So we are super excited that everyone got to join us today. I just want to go over, again, a couple housekeeping rules. Let me share my screen real quick. All right, so yeah, here's the welcome. So we want you to be able to participate. I'm not sure if you were here yesterday, but there's a fun way to participate. You can either go grab your phone or open up a new tab if you're on your laptop or your computer, and you can type in www.menti.com into your internet, and then you use the code 9861. Oh, I'm not able to see it. 50, thank you. So that is a fun way to participate, and also within the slides there are evaluations. So for each sessions or parts that we go through, please just skip over the day 1 if you didn't attend day 1, or if you did attend day 1 and you want to evaluate yesterday, you can definitely go on and do that. And you just need to go through the ones that relate to today or tomorrow if you're going to be there tomorrow. So I just want to clarify that because I know it was a bit confusing yesterday. So yeah, so just skip over the slides. And then something that we also want you to be able to participate in, and let you know that it's self-paced, but something else that we want you to participate in is being able to answer this: my community sees mental health as. And this is a bunch of responses that we got yesterday. Yeah, this is a bunch of responses that we got yesterday. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but you can also answer. And then we have just a couple of demographic stuff, just kind of see where you are. It looks like from today and yesterday, we have a good mixture of an audience today. So that's pretty awesome. And we have more people joining us, and that's great. So yeah, just wanted to kind of quickly go over that. Today we're going to have a keynote address, a second one, Tiffany Ross, as I mentioned earlier, and then after that we're going to have a little 5-minute break, and then we're going to move into our breakout sessions. And the breakout sessions will have a presentation, and then we're going to be able to break out into small groups according to the population that you want to work with and things that we want to do. So we'll get there. So if you have any questions or concerns, or if you're having tech issues, please type into your chat box. That is one way you can participate. Another way is when we do the Q&A is you can raise your hand and I can unmute you, or you can just type into the chat box, or we're going to get to, let me see, let me get to it. Here, we can get to the Q&A with the keynote, and then you can also, this is one way you can type in your questions when we get to the questions. If you're having any like audio issues, I recommend joining in with your phone. There's an option to do that. You can call in and use like codes to dial in. Sometimes, I'm not sure, but there are connection problems and it's hard to hear through the computer. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Tiffany Ross. She's a licensed clinical social worker, supervisor and training specialist for Riverside University Health System Behavioral Health. She's worked with the department for 19 years, where she provided mental health and substance abuse treatment to individuals, families, groups, and as well as providing professional development trainings for the Department of Public Social Services and Children's Services, line staff, and management. For the past 7 years, Tiffany has served as at the, I would say RUHSBHS lead trainer. Is that the acronym?
RUHSBH.
BH, okay. And that's the Riverside University, right?
Yep, Riverside University Health System Behavioral Health.
Wow, that's a long title.
It is, it is.
Yeah, but you're the lead trainer, the liaison, and certified crisis intervention training program coordinator for law enforcement within Riverside County. She's also the supervisor for the Community Behavioral Health Assessment Team, CBAT, a therapist/police corresponder unit stationed in various county LE agencies. CBAT is designed to effectively engage and link persons in behavioral health crisis to appropriate services and strengthen relationships between our law enforcement, behavioral health, and community members. So Tiffany wears a lot of different amazing hats, and I'm so excited to have her join us, and I hope that all of you love her as much as we do. And without further ado, Tiffany, go ahead.
Share my screen?
Yep, share your screen.
All right.
Stop sharing mine.
Okay, this will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue? Yes. Okay. All right, how are we looking?
Good.
Okay. Move this over. All right. It's so, you know, first of all, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Really happy to be here. Really nervous, by the way, but really honored, super honored to be here. I so wish I could be with you live. Oh my goodness, this is really different. I like to see people, and I like to see their expressions and their responses. This is what I do. This is what I think makes me, one of my strengths is being able to read body language and getting a sense of how the audience is feeling and then where to go with that. But nevertheless, happy to be here. I'll get into more about who I am a little bit more specifically. Today we're going to be talking about behavioral health and law enforcement and developing an understanding. But before I get into that, of course, before I get into the meat of things, we have 30 minutes here, and you know, we could probably have a long conversation regarding this. But before we get into this, let me start at the beginning. So once upon a time, I was approached by NAMI California, and they asked me if I would be interested in being a keynote speaker for their Multicultural Symposium. And this was my reaction. This was like, wait a minute, what? Let me get my clicker here. The National Alliance on Mental Illness wants me to be a keynote speaker. Multicultural Symposium, multicultural. Okay, I'm Mexican and I don't speak Spanish. I get multicultural, you bet. I understand it, but me, you know, all these thoughts that come into one's mind. And I'm very transparent, as you'll learn in the next 30 minutes or so that we have together. That I'm very transparent, very matter of fact, very. I try to be personable, you know, and very real and very honest. So these are the things that are going on in my head. Like, what, why, and how, and keynote, what, huh? I'm just a trainer. I don't know. I like to be behind the scenes, not up front, and it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me. But the ladies, you know, they were very encouraging, and I never pass up an opportunity to reach people. Bottom line, I don't need to know you to care about you. I don't need to, I just love what I do. And so you bet, if somebody asks me for something and there's a greater purpose here, there's a good cause, you bet I'm gonna jump on it, no matter how nervous and insecure and where I go for my default. My default is very nervous, very shy, very introverted. And again, you'll learn more about that as I go into it. But so yes, that expression on her face was very much what I was feeling. Now, mental health and mental illness, oh, I got that. Yes, that's what I do. These are my peeps. I love doing this. I got that. Behavioral health, absolutely, absolutely. I breathe all of this. And then law enforcement, yeah, you know, I've worked a long time with these folks, have a really good understanding, and they kind of allowed me and accepted me in to their family, to their culture. And so, yeah, okay, all right. So still though, this was before COVID. This was before COVID. This was before George Floyd. This was before protests. This was before all of these things. And so when this came up again and like, okay, no, we're going to move forward with this. We're just going to do it virtually. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about law enforcement and and culture and behavioral health now. Holy smokes, if this isn't going to get people going. And that's okay. That's okay. You know, I listened to the keynote yesterday, and Dr. Africa, you know, when he stated, he said something about this needs to be talked about, you know, these issues that are sensitive, and it's racism in particular. Yeah, we got to talk about this. We got to talk about this. And we can't be scared anymore to talk about these things or hold back. And we got it. So absolutely. But you know, the timing of all of this, I'm like, really? Oh my gosh, people are going to start hating me and want to throw daggers at me because I work with law enforcement. And you know, so in any case, here we go. So who is Tiffany Ross? So I put a picture on there because who am I? Even with COVID, I'm always advocating. Even with COVID, let me get a mask here that will, if people see it, if they ask questions, if they know that I support mental health and mental illness and education, that's who I am. That's who I am. I'm all about that no matter who I work with. I am a 47-year-old female. I'm a Mexican American. And I'll tell you, you guys, my upbringing, so I'm fifth generation. I don't speak Spanish. I grew up in a family where my parents didn't want to teach me Spanish. My father, who speaks it, my mother, who can but chooses not to, again because of what they grew up in and what was seen as value, what was given value when they were growing up in their generation. My dad told me later on in life that he didn't want to teach me the Spanish that he knew because it was ignorant Spanish. You know, it was the slang. It was, and I just think, goodness, you know, how sad that my father thought that. And if I did grow up learning what he knew, how valuable I would be too in being able to speak Spanish, you know. In any case, so there were reasons. And as a little girl, I remember people always asking me, you know, what are you? Because they couldn't figure it out because my eyes are a little almond shaped, and so people would think that I'm Asian. People would think that if I had curly hair and I get really dark when I'm during the summer, that I was Black, Puerto Rican. I mean, everybody, that was always the first question a lot of folks asked me, and they didn't ask me in a curious, like interested way. It was more like, not like in a curious kind of positive way. It's more like, what are you? You know, like with some kind of like, there was a vibe to it that wasn't positive. And I remember not being accepted by other Mexicans, Mexican Americans. I dressed, my mom was very much about appearance, you know, because again, we bring in our own issues and then we pass these along to our children if we don't heal, if we're not aware. And so she used to have everything just right and tight, you know, you put your little mija in clothes and you can't get them dirty. And so everything had to be so precise, and I didn't think anything of it other than this is just the way it is, you know. But so I maybe spoke differently or whatever, but my fellow Mexican Americans, or the ones who did speak Spanish, they were real Mexicans, you know. And this is not me saying this. This is what people have said to me growing up, or what the children, the youth would say to me too. And I didn't fit in with white individuals because I was too dark. And I remember, and I don't know why this happened, but I remember, or what prompted it, but somebody must have said something, because I remember taking a shower and trying to scrub my elbows, because when you're darker, your elbows are darker, your knees are darker. And so somebody must have said something about you're like dirty. And so I just remember trying to scrub the color off of my skin, you know. And so I've experienced what it's like to not fit in, to be the other, and then I've also felt the other side of being accepted for other reasons, you know. And with a certain appearance, people assume certain things about you. Unfortunately, there a lot of times that if you're dressed well, or if you speak a certain way, or whatever, that, you know, I would get your stuck up. You think you're better than, you know, all of these different things. And as time went on, and a teenager, I started to feel a lot more pressure. And that, you know, at age 14 is typically when individuals are diagnosed with the, you know, mental illness. And I was never diagnosed, but I absolutely had depression, major depressive. If I had actually followed through, because my parents tried and took me to different professionals, but I resisted as a teen. I'm like, I don't need to talk to nobody. No way, they don't know anything. But I was absolutely depressed. And I share this because we all have a story. We all have a story, no matter where we come from, no matter what education or level of the degree we have, or what, we all have a story. We all have a story, no matter what this looks like on the outside. And I remember this. And all of this too, while I'm sharing, is because this is what encouraged me to go to this field and what I'm doing now. People saw this and thought, but didn't know how dark I felt inside, how sad, how angry, not towards others, but all me. And that really gave me some insight just to individuals and how we judge folks, and how we go based on appearance or what we see on the outside. And we just don't know what's going on the inside. Again, we all have a story. So I'm married. I'm a parent. I have 2 babies at home, 11 and 14. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I tell you, I own that social work title. I own it. I am like a social worker to the core. When I think social work, even though I'm a clinical social worker, yes, we can do therapy, but I'm all about the bigger picture. I'm all about the bigger picture and how what I do has an impact on other people and other groups, on other systems. You bet. I'm a therapist, I'm a supervisor, I'm a trainer. I'm also a daughter, and that's my father. And I think, again, my father, Vietnam veteran, Marine. So I grew up, you know, I'm a brainwashed Marine daughter. And my father is the epitome of strength and sensitivity. Strength and sensitivity. A man who can hold his own, who can take care, who can jump into action, absolutely, without hesitation. And at the same time, be painting his Miha's nails and braiding her hair. You know, so really, that's my father. He's my hero, and that definitely, that's really who I am too. I'm playful, but look at my fingernail polish. What color is it? It's lime green. Yeah, because I'm always about lime green and mental health and awareness and education. And you ask me, you know, yes, I'm wearing this because this means mental health, anti-stigma campaign, always about that. And in the back, I don't know if you can see it, but in the back, because it's really it's a video, but in the back is my husband, and it's pointing to him. His name is Owen, and it says serious, because he's all Mr. Serious, and here I am, his wife, just a silly nut. But thank goodness for a sense of humor, you guys, because that really is that's a strength and an absolute coping. I wish I could ask you questions. Anyways, all right. So here we go. So what is the issue? What is the issue? What are we talking about here with regards to behavioral health and law enforcement? And rather, what is the issue? What is an issue? An issue, because I do not want you thinking that I am not aware about how big this is. That this is just what I am talking about today is just an issue. It is not the issue. This is a huge, complicated, a complex situation, you know, what we're dealing with in the current climate right now in our country, in our state, in our country. But developing an understanding, that was the title I gave my presentation, because that's what I think it's about with regards to what I do, behavioral health and law enforcement, and us working together. How have I done this? And why have I done this? Developing understanding and how important that is. And I think one of the first questions is, for some people, they're like, why? Well, why? Who cares? Why would we want to join with, so I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit with regards to multiculturalism. We know we talk about race and gender and sex and all of those different factors. With regards to what I'm talking about, it is the culture of behavioral health, because they're right, there are separate cultures with everything. If individuals who are addicted to substances, there's a certain culture, and even within that, there's other subcultures. So the culture of behavioral health, the cultural of law enforcement. So that's really what I'm focusing on here, and how I have had the privilege and honor of helping to strengthen those relationships between these two very different cultures with two very different missions, you would think, or this is what we would typically think. But the question is why? Why do we even need to do this? Who cares? Who cares? That's them, this is us. Why do we even need to do that? Why? Because we have a community out there in need. Because we have individuals who are first responders, and first responders means that they are the first to respond, who when people are in crisis and they don't have anyone else to contact, because maybe there are no mental health services, or we know there's holes in all of our systems. Bottom line, we know there are holes in all of our systems. We need more services, we need more care, we need more, we need more. We're asked to do more with less, we need more. But why should we join? Why should we partner? Again, because we have a community who is in need. And we come across the same individuals in behavioral health and in law enforcement. We see this. We see individuals cycling in and out of services and or the hospital and or getting incarcerated, and we don't see them getting the services they need. So why? Because I believe it's necessary in order to get our folks where they deserve to be and to get the support they deserve. So how do we do that? How do we do that? We get real, we get honest, and we start talking about, you know, what's keeping us apart, us and them. Then in order for me to be a good trainer with law enforcement, in order for me to be a good supervisor to my employees who are partnered with law enforcement and who work with them and sit in a patrol car with them 40 hours a week, we got to talk about the perception or the divide or the potential, because maybe there isn't, but the potential. We got to address what may happen or how people may perceive all of this. And so it's us and them, right? And I have seen this over the years in working in my profession, whether I was with the county or even before, because I've been doing this for over 20 years in this profession. And you work for different agencies, and you see agencies not talking to each other. You see agencies who are confused, and so they're pointing fingers at one another and saying, oh, it's because of them, or oh, it's this, and if only they this, and if only they that, and not talking though. You know, even within own departments, and you have a lot of different classifications, job classifications under the same roof, but nobody leaves their cubicle when you have somebody over there that you could maybe ask a question, but you don't get up, you don't connect, you don't talk, you don't collaborate. And so talking about the us and them, and talking about, okay, me as a trainer, I'm gonna go into a room full of individuals who I am not a part of. This is their home, this is their territory. I'm a female, I'm behavioral health, I'm a mental health professional, and I'm gonna come in a classroom full of law enforcement and I'm going to train them. Okay, how am I gonna get them to hear and to be open to this? And am I aware of what I'm going into? Am I aware of any of their culture, of the potential challenges or barriers that are gonna keep them potentially from opening up? Because I'll tell you, and I know it sounds like it's all negative, but as a therapist, my approach has always been, even with my clients too, is let's address the ugly. Let's address the uncomfortable. Let's address the potential negative barriers. And then we can talk about positive, you know, but no, let's talk about what's not working, or let's talk about your fear of me, a mental health professional, being in this room right now with you. If I were talking to law enforcement, let's talk about that fear of me being in here, and what are you afraid of? Because once we can talk about those things, then their minds will open potentially, and they will take in the information that I have to offer with regards to mental health and mental illness and de-escalation and all of those things, if that makes sense. Write down your questions if you have questions. So if something I'm saying doesn't make sense, please, so you can bring it up later. Again, this mindset, you know, let's get out of this first. If in order to partner, in order to join forces, in order to work together, we got to address this mindset and see if we're there at all. Me, us, right, self, you, them, wrong, others. And who's pointing fingers, or are we both pointing fingers? Look at this cartoon. So you see all these babies and they're marked, right? Us, them, us, them, us, them. It's so you'll know which ones to fear. It's so you know which ones to fear. And, you know, I saw this cartoon. I'm like, wow, this is, yeah, right. And I'm not just talking about black and white. I'm not just talking about race here, right? We're talking about mental individuals who are diagnosed with a mental illness, and those who are not. And those who are not, saying those people, them, those mentally ill. We know stigma. We know stigma. NAMI knows stigma well. You are fighters and advocate. You advocate to help promote understanding. So this can be us and them for so many different things. So many different things. We got to get past that fear. That fear leads to ignorance. It's ignorance, right? And I don't say ignorance in a demeaning way. I mean ignorance in not knowing, not understanding, and maybe not wanting to understand because of the fear. And what are we afraid of? What are people afraid of? Afraid that their psyche is going to be challenged, afraid that their values are going to be challenged, afraid that they're going to be told what to do and how to do it. When the reality is when I provide information to my officers, I provide them information with the understanding that, you know what, you guys, I'm providing this information because I want you to be out. I want you to go out there and I want you to be equipped. I want you to go out and do your job and feel more competent, more confident. And for you to go out there in our communities right now and not have an understanding of mental health and mental illness and the different resources in your communities is a disservice. I'm just saying, you or your department is disabling you to put you out there on the streets and you not have a clue about where to send someone if they have mental health distress, or who to connect with if a person is in need. Because not everybody needs to be hospitalized. Some people just need to be connected and linked to certain resources and services. So this fear of what are we afraid of? What are we afraid of? And this too, when I alluded to what is the issue and that what is an issue. So take a look at this. And so you have where's the line largest, right? Simple but wrong as far as answers. Complex but right. And I typically don't like the words wrong or right because I think there's always a gray. But you know what this it means is that when we're hit hard, and when we're triggered for real reason, because we've had experiences that have been negative. We've had experiences that validate my need to be angry, that validate my feelings of pain and rage, validate it. You've experienced those, that when we feel that emotion, oftentimes we react, and we make reactive decisions as opposed to proactive decisions. And we make it very simple, like, okay, behavioral health and law enforcement. And I've heard it with everything, you know, so perhaps this is timely because I've heard it with regards to even my position and working with law enforcement and my therapist working at the stations with certain PDs is like, they shouldn't be working. Because of the outrage and because of the consistent just frustration with injustice, really. You guys shouldn't be working with the PDs. You all need to be taken out of the PTs because you are reinforcing racism, structural racism, you know, and or just you shouldn't be working with them. Take away all take away service. I mean, just the extreme ways of thinking because of the emotion, which I get it. I get it. I get it. But is that the best route? Is that how we're going to solve the problem, or at least attempt to? So, and again, we can talk more, especially with your questions, if you have some questions regarding this. But yeah, it's really easy to just don't do this, don't do that, and let's be done with it, or just simple solutions. They're not necessarily. So what am I at RUHS Behavioral Health doing about it? And I am a representative of our department, so that's why I put /, because it's not what I am doing the work. I'm on the ground doing the work, but it is with the thank goodness, a department that supports this and sees the need. Training. Again, I was hired initially as a trainer. I've only been a supervisor now for a year, maybe. That's more new, but this is what I do. I love reaching the masses in classroom settings. So it started with our sheriff department, and then it just has evolved to all of Riverside police that want training, that need training within our county, within Riverside County. And so I have a lead trainer, I have trainers, I have individuals that participate. Now, I'm not doing this alone. It isn't just me. I actually have law enforcement partners that train with me, who understand the importance of mental health, because again, knowing your audience, who better to hear it from than someone who is within your system, within your culture, who can say, yes, 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 we were trained this way tactically. And yes, 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 it is even more important, or equally important, that we understand this as well. So pay attention, you know. And I love it. I love it. Now, I have the kind of personality where they do pay attention, and where they do in the beginning, because I set the stage from the get-go that, hey, you guys, I'm here because I want to support you. I want you to go out there and I want you to be safe, but even the bigger picture, I want the community to be safe. No, this is not a law enforcement issue. It isn't. It's not a law enforcement issue. It's a behavioral health issue. It's a mental health issue. It's a substance abuse issue. It's more than that. It's not law enforcement. It's not criminal. It's civil. It's emotional. And so, but because you're first responders, and because in Riverside County, we don't have certain things in place, you guys are going to respond to this. So then how can we make the most out of it? Let's give you some education. Let's give you some information that you can provide the families and individuals that you deal with in the field and in the jails, because I train the folks in the jails as well. Let's give you that, and use it when you can. And we understand that there may be situations where at times, unfortunately, where when you have someone with severe psychiatric impairment who's not getting treatment, we've seen how some of these situations have ended up. And I have family, well, I'll show you as we continue to go along here. But so just getting very real open and honest from the beginning, and then getting them the information. And knowing too that I can provide all the information in the world, but if you don't want to use this, if your mind is going to be closed, so it is, and deal with the consequences. There's just so many different tangents I can go on here, because this can really evoke a lot of emotion, this whole subject in general. I'm looking at the time. All right. And so we also get to them. In the academy. So before they even become law officers in the jails or on the streets, we're training them in the academy. It is required. It is required by our state that they have 24 hours mental health for our correctional deputies. I don't recall the number, but it is required. And there are really some really great portions of mental health instruction covering trauma, all the different diagnoses, substance abuse, suicide prevention, stigma and bias, emotional health, liability, roles and responsibilities. A lot of really, it's newer curriculum this year, and it's fantastic. We get up out of their chairs, participating, doing teachbacks. Now they're teaching their peers about, okay, can you just tell us the behaviors of what is bipolar? what services are out in the community, what would you do in this different situation. We're getting out in the field, and they're doing scenarios where we have role players who are behaving as someone who is experiencing psychosis, and then what would the officers do? What would the officers do? Using their verbal communication skills, de-escalation skills, techniques. That's the goal ultimately, but also being aware when that doesn't work, then what other options do they have? And then they're also observing and providing input as the behavioral health professional. Also, in all of our trainings, I incorporate individuals with lived experience. So the woman on the picture right there with the red jacket, she has been diagnosed with a mental illness. So we have peers who come in and speak. We have family advocates and parent partners who share with all of our law enforcement their experiences, their stories, when they were not getting treatment or in recovery, and their experiences with law enforcement, both positive and negative. That's the best part. That's the best part. When I bring somebody in and that's the part that they love the most. They love to hear the individual who has a specific diagnosis and sharing their experience, because they get to ask questions, and the employees, our peers also get to. It's just, you see them learning from each other. That is the best part, when they get to actually hear about our peers' experiences with law enforcement. What we're also doing is what I talked about, or how it's introduced, is CBAT, the supervisor over our community behavioral health assessment teams. And these are just pictures of some of my folks. So we have the clinician on the left, and well, obviously, duh, right? Why am I explaining that? Okay, anyways, here's some more. So we have seven. Riverside County, this is fairly new. I mean, the first picture that I saw you here with Hector and Officer Roberts, Hector has been doing this for 5 years. So our Riverside Police Department has had the team the longest. Then our Hemet Police Department got one a few years ago. And these are our newer teams. We're with Indio, another Riverside Police, a swing shift. We have swing shifts now. We just have more law enforcement agencies who are really like, yes, please, we would love to have one. And that's a picture of some of me and my clinicians. But this is for Riverside County. I tell you, I've been working 7 years now doing as a trainer. And when I started 7 years ago, there was this like, no way do we want someone riding with us in our car. And boy, have things changed, have shifted to yes, please, because the calls continue to increase with individuals in our community who are experiencing mental health crises, and them really kind of surrendering and saying, yes, we don't have the answers. Yes, we don't know. We are not the mental health professionals. Help. Because we can't do this and we don't know what to do. And all we know is we continue to keep going back to the same homes, the same individuals who are homeless. We don't know where to go. It's getting frustrated. And so more and more folks do this. But other counties and throughout our state and even throughout the country, this is a model that's already being used and implemented. This is not new. This is not new. It's new for us, newer for us, but it's something that has been going on, and other areas are even doing more than this. Or rather, so you train, so you partner with, so you work with. Is it working? This is just an example. And like anything, everyone, like anything, I can teach you all as parents, for those who are parents out there. I could put you in a parenting class and I can teach you parenting skills. But like anything, we're all human, right? And so you're going to do what works for you in the moment. You're going to take what I say and use it, or you're going to be like, this is a bunch of crap. And no, I'm not gonna, that doesn't work for me. Whatever the case, I mean, bottom line, we're working with human beings here. Law enforcement, behavioral health professionals, you bet. Because that's your profession, do I hold you to a different standard than a community member? You bet I do. That's your profession, you better get it right and you better learn. And I will talk to them that way because it is important, and I take what I do seriously, and they should take what they do seriously as well. But here's an example of a response from one of the officers who took the class, and I just love this because he's really candid. And this is a newsletter. This is just a little bit of a newsletter. He's also a veteran, and yes, so he said he attended the class, the CIT crisis intervention training class. He admittedly, I walked in the first day with a bit of skepticism regarding what to expect. I initially thought it would be a way for a bunch of psychobabble preachers. Yep, to tell us we need to start coddling people we encounter with mental health issues. I went in with the idea that my officer's safety was more important than wearing kid gloves while dealing with an individual with mental illness, and they weren't going to make me risk my safety or someone else's. Boy, was I off mark! Exclamation mark. First of all, the class was nothing like what I expected. The instructor really took me by surprise. She is very pro law enforcement and very pro officer safety first. So since she had my attention, I decided to learn a few things. And what I want to really point out is the underline section, but also the one right before that where it says she is very pro law enforcement and very pro officer safety. This is not because I go in there saying I'm pro law enforcement. I don't go in there saying I'm pro law enforcement. And it is because, and I tell you, it is how I've been able to work so well and to really kind of build these bridges is the approach. I go in there and I go in there with honesty and truth and respect. And open-mindedness. I don't go in there telling them what to do. I go in there wanting to know what do you need? What are you afraid of? I'm not going to come in here and tell you that you have to, give up all your safety and then potentially get hurt, right? In any case, that she is very pro law enforcement. That's because of how I made them feel, not because of what I said, not because I said I'm pro law enforcement. It's just a feeling. And so this part that's underlined. So since she had my attention, I decided to learn a few things. That's huge, I believe. Just like when I was doing therapy with my clients, that since she had my attention, since I felt like I mattered, since I felt like maybe someone wanted to understand me, now maybe I can open up and learn and hear. That's incredibly important. This is what I do with clients. This is what I do with the law enforcement that I work with, to be able to create that sense of safety to where now their minds can open and they don't have to be so darn defended. I just, and I don't know, I've got to wrap it up here. So another letter from a parent who talked about a missing person and possible suicide, and the CBAT who responded to the home, and how they responded quickly and they took their time and they performed their duties with respect and empathy. And then how they connected with another PD outside of our county, and that PD handled the situation with grace and compassion. And it says, we are working our way through the complexities of the mental health system, which it is so complex sometimes. This is why I love our parent partners and our advocates and our peers, and hoping to get all the resources she needs to succeed. But we are only at this point because of your timely and professional assistance. So, good stuff. And then just finally, another example of an individual who took what they learned and applied it. So an individual who was hearing voices and following command voices of fake people, using much of what you taught us. I managed to calm her down by identifying and validating. I love it when they use the words I use. Identifying mental health words and validating her feelings. I took her to ETS, which is our psychiatric hospital in Riverside County. A few days later, she got taken back by another deputy, and in the same scenario. When her neighbors called and asked if I could do anything more to help them, I used some of my phone numbers, so some of the resources, and basically, again, connecting them. So the CREST is one of our behavioral health crisis programs too in our program. But basically, he used the resources he learned, and he was able to help out. All right, finally, to wrap up here. So what can you do? What can we do? We got to have a growth mindset. We got to have open minds. We got to be open-minded. We got to acknowledge our own biases, our own implicit biases, right? We got to get real with ourselves and our own discomfort. Are we labeling everybody, all of them, everyone, with that concrete thinking? Is our mind fixed and locked, or is it open and willing to expand and grow? Respect, right? Respect. And that's self-explanatory. And the heart is just compassion. compassion. We don't see what's on the other side of those hands and those arms. We don't see what those individuals are wearing or how they look or how they come across, but coming together and having some compassion and consideration for each other. And again, everything that I'm saying here, I say to those officers in class. I say to my behavioral health professionals who are working with and not working with law enforcement. This is just part of this is just everyone having some understanding and being mindful. Let me move this here for a second. Being mindful. Shoot, I can't. Mouse isn't. Okay, well, this is, again, just being mindful, aware, relaxation, kindness, presence, that we have. And if you look at the picture with the 3 heads, you see that all jumbled up. And I think that's a lot of times what's going on. All of this emotion, all of this thought, and we're not able to think clearly. And we have to be mindful. We got to take care of ourselves. We've got to relax. We've got to be aware. We have to be present and be kind to our own spirit, kind to others, because it does ultimately have an impact on how we respond. And this is what I tell the officers too. You knowing about mental health, you knowing about yourself, you getting real with all of the situation is going to make you a better officer, is going to make you safer, is going to make our community members safer. I want you to go out there and try to educate and partner with, remember the positive qualities of law enforcement. And is there a structural issue here? Does there need to be structural change? You bet, 100%. Structural change, I think Dr. Africa talked about structural, 100%, holy smokes. And just the history, understanding the history of law enforcement, that needs to be taught. That needs to be taught in the academies. That needs to be taught just so that everyone has an awareness and sense of where this is coming from. Because it makes sense when you see the history. Yes, they were there trying to arrest or capture slaves. So understanding that, just again, just everything that I'm talking about has to do with understanding and understanding history too. Definitely a structural change. But while we're in it, embedded inside, we can definitely start making change individually and holding some individuals accountable. So, there you are. That's at a NAMI meeting in our region. But if there's any questions, shoot, I went 7 minutes over.
Thank you, Tiffany. That was amazing. And thank you for sharing like your own story and like, you know, what led you to get to where you are, and then just the importance in combining, you know, 2 different like thoughts and like opinions, but like coming to like a middle ground and just like, you know, figuring things out from there.
It's a lot. Do I stop sharing, or can you stop sharing it for me? Or
yeah, I'll share, no worries. So yeah, I think this question happened to be here by accident. I didn't know that this question was here from yesterday, but if you want, you can, I think that you have any idea how you can answer this, it'd be great to have like different like opinions from different keynotes and stuff. So
how can we start having deeper conversations about white supremacy with white folks? How can we start? You know, we just have to we just have to do it. We have to just start having those conversations. And, you know, when this whole happened, and of course I debrief with my staff, and that includes law enforcement too, but because of what they might experience or being afraid to talk about it. And like, we can't be afraid to talk about it. And I had some conversations with some of my PDs, and I said, how many black officers do you have in this, you know, in this department? You know, I mean, take a look. What's going on? We got to be comfortable. It's just like when I talk about mental health. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about mental illness. Don't be scared to say these words. Don't be scared to say suicide. We got to talk about this. We got to encourage, we got to advocate, and so that people are going to feel less stigmatized and more like empowered. How can we start having deeper conversations about white supremacy with white folks? We got to have them. Yeah, and we got to have them with the right, I was going to say with the right individuals, but I mean, you know, when you can have conversations with individuals and it's going to go nowhere, and you know when someone is really open to hearing it. But they're great conversations, and I certainly have had some, and they're great when you can have them. I don't know if that's a good answer. Would it be possible to get your email address to discuss? You bet. You bet. To discuss further activism efforts regarding mental health. You bet. Of course.
Okay, awesome. And I'll put their email, and then I'm gonna have a resource page and of all the presenters and everything, their bio, and then maybe some way they can contact them. I'm gonna put that all in the follow-up email after all 3 days have been completed. So that's definitely gonna go into to everyone, just to let everyone know. And then this question, how do you feel about a move to crisis teams that do not include law enforcement because of the deep-rooted history of law enforcement with racism?
Well, our county, Riverside County, does currently have a crisis mobile response team that is made up of all behavioral health professionals. We have a clinical therapist and paraprofessionals, a clinical therapist, a peer, and behavioral health specialists is what we call them in our county. So yeah, we have that already. And so how that works though, so a community member can call, and then if it is safe, that's the thing, if it is safe, right? And so sometimes it's unpredictable, but if the individual is saying, yes, I would like to talk to someone, the team is dispatched out. Law enforcement can be out in the field and they could recognize that, yeah, no, this requires a lot more time and a lot more expertise than we have, obviously. So let's go ahead and call the crisis response team, and then the law enforcement clears it for safety, and then the behavioral health team responds and then takes over, and law enforcement leaves. How do I feel about it? I think it's great. I think law enforcement would be absolutely for it too. If they're not, again, we're dealing with a lot of folks who, on all ends and all sides, who are reacting and saying, you know, yeah, go ahead, go see what happens if you guys go alone. Yeah. Okay, that's extreme. When we're in a balanced frame of thought, then it's like, yeah, absolutely defunding, and those are triggering words, right? There's certain words that are used in a negative way, or it sounds negative, but so defunding, heck yeah, yes, if there can be money that can better support and help handle calls that they really aren't equipped to handle, why not do that? So I mean, it's a win-win. Now, however, they're going to be situated, and as a social worker, I used to go out in the field on my own. Didn't have law enforcement. I would go out on my own, and I was taught to read the environment, and if it felt that this is a little shady, or no, I don't think I can, then I wouldn't. But you know, there were also times when I was ready to see, okay, what do I have here? Because all I really have are my words. What do I have? Can I get my shoe off fast enough? Do I have keys that if something were to happen? So I was always going out and doing certain work, not hypervigilant to a detriment, but just aware of my surroundings and knowing the potential risks. So there is a time and a place and a need, you bet, for law enforcement. But are there situations where behavioral health or mental health professionals can go out on their own? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. What do you think would be the most rewarding experiences for a social work intern in your agency? To what extent do students have an opportunity to offer input into administration and planning?
Okay. So I'm the crisis intervention training program coordinator. So that's an administrative unit. And then I am the supervisor over CBAT, which requires more clinical work, obviously. But our department offers a lot. So it's what we call it in our world, and many of you are familiar with this, is micro, meso, and macro. A micro practice is individual therapy. Meso is more groups and, big groups. And it's like small, medium, large. And a macro is the system, policy change, implementing, planning, all of that. So there's all of those opportunities within Riverside County Behavioral Health. And what do you think would be the most rewarding experience for a social work intern? It depends on the social worker and what their interest is, and because that's going to be what's most rewarding for them if they're going somewhere where their passion, what they're passionate for, whether that's with children, older adults, crisis, clinic work, substance abuse, whatever. So depends on the social worker.
Definitely. That's amazing. And I know there's always like ways people can volunteer, and especially within your behavioral health departments, there are opportunities for students to volunteer throughout the state, and like all the departments have opportunities for students. So definitely, I would definitely recommend checking out your local behavioral department site and stuff. Even your local NAMI, for a lot of them are volunteer based.
Yep.
orgs. So yeah, definitely.
And
That's another
and
one.
NAMI is consistently always absolutely a part of our referrals, our advocating, letting them know who NAMI is and what they're about and the resource. Yes.
So I think we have time for a couple more questions. There's one in the chat box. Do you think more training is required more than 24 hours? Are these training public records? And how can we keep law enforcement accountable?
Mm. How can we, oh, I'm a trainer, right? So I think there could always be more training. Now, the thing with training is it needs to be effective, right? You can have individuals who just, okay, we're going to be learning about this right now, and so what I want you to do, there's got to be more the dynamics. There's got to be more interaction. So it's how effective is the training, right? As opposed to just somebody delivering the information. I always think there can be more. Yep, and fortunately within our county they're willing. It's just about having the resources, because a lot of times when you do train and getting creative, I think COVID has taught us to have to, here we are, right? We have to learn how to be creative and how best to still make it dynamic, even though it's virtual. But yeah, I work in a county where they're very, very open and again, about resources. Can I take the cops out, all of the cops out of the jails, or how many can I when they're already short, or off the streets and things like that. So it's learning how to do that. And sometimes I've had to go at 10 o'clock at night to do a briefing, because I don't care if that's what they want. I'm going to come to every briefing, because if they need to know, they want to know how to fill out a 5150 application so it's more valuable. But, yeah, I'm going to ask, I'm going to come. So it's getting creative. Yes, I think there needs to be more training. What was the other, how do we hold them accountable? Well, again, when we're talking about structural change, we need law enforcement. I would love law enforcement to go back or because I adopt, shift and evolve their mindset to, yes, absolutely. We got to hold all our officers accountable. When they do something wrong, when they do something stupid, we need to say it. We need to call them out, and we need to do it not in a degrading way, but in a way that's going to help empower them and remind them that, hey, law enforcement equals this. It does not equal that, and you are giving us a bad rap. So I do the same thing with the profession. I don't want mental health professionals out there giving my profession a bad name. And I've seen that. I've seen that in my profession, where you have, and I've heard it from individuals in the community who have gone to therapists who have not been very welcoming or warm or helpful, and so they turn individuals off to mental health services. So it happens in every profession, but law enforcement, they know it's time to evolve. Again, why do I see the positive, or why do I say that they know, is because I get to hear and I get to see, because I work with them all day long. And train so many of them that you have more than not that get it, that want it, that want what we're talking about here. But again, the culture, and not understanding the history of it, and being comfortable in talking about the ugly, the dark, the absolutely unacceptable stuff. You got to be able to talk about that stuff. You got to be able to talk it and call it out. Hold your folks accountable, and let's have a community, you guys all too, holding individuals accountable as well. Like what's happening now, it's horrific, it's tragic, it's all of that, but I'm glad. Sometimes stuff needs, I'm not glad that there was loss and tragedy, but as far as the outrage and maybe now, it's a huge opportunity for a shift, you guys. It is a huge opportunity for positive shift if we can keep our minds open and not be reactive, but proactive. Not just think this is the answer. No, that we've got to really be considerate to make change. It's a community. It is a community.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have one quick short question, and then we're going to be, and then we can just close, and then go into our break. So is that one person is asking your thoughts on the idea that many college, universities, and schools are reconsidering armed law enforcement on campus and more training on social justice and mental health issues to address the systematic racism. And they're asked, should they not be armed, or not in uniforms? They're just wondering your thoughts around that, the whole idea of having law enforcement on campus.
Well, These are not simple answers that I can just do in 1 minute, a couple seconds. But do I think they need to be armed, or even there at the schools? You know what? There's a time and a place for that, right? Because of the school shootings, I want my babies to be safe. I know that there's one city that's getting their school officers, their school PD cut, and I'll tell you, that is one of the finest departments and individuals I have seen, like very, very pro mental health and just really top notch, and they're being taken out. They in 6 months to a year are going to have to look for another job if they cut them. And that, it's like, wow, that was a PD that was just outstanding, and really the rapport that they had with school. So even though they were in their uniform, even though they had their firearms, that wasn't the focus. That's okay. That's your profession. That's what you do. The focus was more about the relationships. So when the relationships are there, the focus on all of that diminishes, as opposed to, oh, law enforcement, that fear. It's a big issue, you guys. And yes, I again, it is a structural change that needs to occur. It does. But are there law enforcement who can be at schools with their uniform on, with a weapon, with all of that? You bet. You absolutely. But there really needs to be some structural change. I've seen the positive. I've seen it. I know it can happen. I know it can, but there's so many other things that potentially get in the way.
Right, definitely. Oh my God. So I guess we are gonna go shift into a break. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I mean, everything that you talked about, and like you're like a perfect like liaison between like what's going on, especially nowadays with law enforcement and mental health and the trainings required. And I think this like you said, there's a huge opportunity for a positive shift, and these conversations need to happen. And I definitely agree, like regardless of all the loss, tragedy, and just the insane amount of anxiety and depression and all that going on like right now during these hard times, this is bringing an opportunity, like a light into actually focusing on like, oh, these are important things that we do need to talk about, and
Yeah.
maybe this will bring a better balance. It might take some
Yes.
time, but
Yes.
yeah.
Let's get honest. Let's get real. Let's talk about history and let's move forward. Let's come up with some ideas
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. I really, really appreciate it.
Of
And
course.
I've been just want to let you know that a lot of people on chat have been talking about how informative and balanced, and like how they just love all the things that you're saying, and they just love your presentation. So just
And
wanted to,
And thank you, and thank you for that. I wish I could read them all, but if there is anyone out there, you're going to have my email address. If there's something there too that I said that you're like, oh, whatever, I'm safe, I would love to talk to you. Please, if you have any questions, I absolutely am accessible.
thank you so much, Tiffany. So
You're
yeah, so that is any part of our part two of our keynote address. So we're gonna go and shift into a break for about 5 minutes. Let's reconvene at 2:08, and we're gonna get started on our breakout sessions, and that'll be exciting too. And it's very interactive. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so
looking
much,
forward to it.
Tiffany.
Thank you, guys. You be safe, be healthy.
Thank you. Definitely, you too. All right, everyone, take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll be back in 2:08, and we'll get started on breakout sessions. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Let's get started on breakout sessions. I was just talking to myself for about a minute, and then I realized I was muted. So, yeah. So, yeah, well, my name is Ragni Lal. I'm going to let Brianna, Ania, and Maria introduce themselves before we get started.
Hi everyone, Brianna here. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at NAMI, California, and I'll be one of your co-facilitators today.
Hi everyone, my name is Ania Townsell. I'm a psychology postdoctoral resident at Kaiser, and I will be one of the co-facilitators today as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Maria Alanis. I work for UC Davis Center for Reducing Health Disparities, and I'll be one of the co-facilitators for today.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So we're going to be creating an action plan today. And then we're going to dive into two different populations that we're going to focus on, either immigrant populations or diverse communities in the criminal justice system, as you can see. So as we're going through our slides, just think about which community you would want to work with, which community you are interested in and want to maybe create an action plan around or get to know more about. That's just something I want you to keep in mind. Let's get to the,
Ragini, and I just wanted to add, just so that people can get it into their minds as early as possible, this will be very interactive. So toward the end of the session, we'll actually break you all into small groups and you'll have a chance to actually speak to each other. You don't have to turn your camera on, but we do recommend maybe turning your mic on so that you can have that dialogue, or at least typing into the chat box your thoughts.
Definitely, thank you, Brianna. So this is the action plan. These are kind of the points that we're going to go over, and we're going to provide some examples so that you have a better idea of how to create the plan or what to write and things like that before you break out into your sessions. One of the things that we're also going to talk about are the class standards, and then we're going to talk about the Solano County model, which Brianna and Maria will go over. So let's go into the class standards and why that will be necessary in our action plan. So the class standards are the National Standards of Culturally and Linguistic Appropriate Services. They were, I forgot the year, but they were updated in 2013, and they were made by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health. There are about 15 standards, and they have about three categories that they fall under. The principal standard is basically what you see on the screen, is to provide effective, equitable, understandable, and respectful quality care and services. They're responsive to diverse cultural health beliefs and practices, preferred languages, health literacy, and other communication needs. I'm going to hand it over to Ania to go over the other three main categories, and I just want to remind you to keep those class standards in mind, or maybe if you read through them, you can see which one stands out to you, because then you'll be using this class standard as part of your action plan. There's also, I think, this link right here. I wish I could copy it and put it into the chat box, because it'll have the class standards. Am I able to do that real quick?
Ragini, I can go ahead and do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, move on to the next slide, and I'm going to go ahead and put the two, actually. Another one will come up, so I'll go ahead and put the two links for everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to copy it and it wouldn't let me, so anyway. Nia, go ahead.
Okay, so the first category is governance, leadership, and workforce. And what it basically means is leadership must support and invest in the implementation of culturally responsive policies and practices, including providing training and support to staff and volunteers, and by actively working to address systemic barriers. So an example would be this first one right here: advance and sustain organizational governance and leadership that promotes class and health equity through policy, practices, and allocated resources. The second category is communication and language assistance. For that one, it's the provision of culturally responsive communication, including sign language, braille, oral interpretation, and written translation. An example would be inform all individuals of the availability of language assistance services clearly and in the preferred language and preferred language verbally and in writing. The last category, which has a lot more sections as you can see, is engagement, continuous improvement, and accountability standards. Sorry, I was going a little too fast. So for this one, it's the importance of accountability through a systematic, wow, I'm having a hard time with that word, but it's the importance of accountability, a way of developing goals and outcomes, monitoring adherence to the class standards, policies and practices implemented, and addressing any quality improvement issues periodically or as needed. So for example, conducting ongoing assessments of the organization's class-related activities and integrate class-related measures into measurement and continuous quality improvement activities. You will have more time to review these later on as well. And you can also follow that link that was just posted to get more information on these standards.
Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to jump into talking about the model that we are going to model the quality improvement action plans around. So we have Maria on the call and she'll dive into a little bit more of the phases. But I did just want to introduce what they are actually doing in Solano County. So it's the Solano County Behavioral Health Interdisciplinary Collaboration and Cultural Transformation Model. Quite a mouthful, but we're going to break down what that means. So on our next slide, we have the model itself. So we had, sorry, there's a little bit of a lag. Tech fun all the time. We'll get, yeah, there it is. Okay, so we have these 3 core project components. So really what happened is that there was this multi-phase community initiated MHSA innovation project, Mental Health Services Act innovation project, that focused on key cultural and linguistic competencies required to successfully highlight the experiences and mental health needs of Solano County, specifically Latino population, Filipino American population, and LGBTQ communities. So the team actually used a subsection of that first tier that you see, community engaged research. So community-based participatory research. What does that mean? It means that they went straight to the community to figure out what are the needs. Let's not invent a program or an action plan before we know what the community is actually saying that they need. So that was a critical component. The class standards was another critical component that we just went over. Feel free to review those, have that window up on the side as you're going through your action plan, because those will be handy. So they went over class standards in a lot of depth, reviewed them, and figured out where can we actually create an action plan within these class standards that makes sense for these communities. And then the third branch, which is really what we're going to be working on today, is quality improvement and sustainability. So a quality improvement action plan. What are the needs? How can we address it? And what are we going to do to measure what we're doing is actually effective or not? And then this goes over some of the core components. So the first thing that happened was phase 1, and that's the most important part that we're going to keep emphasizing today. So collecting stories, histories, strengths of desired communities, right? So the Latino, the Filipino American, LGBTQ. And why this is so important is because of everything that we've been talking about since yesterday. Historical trauma, historical oppression, the history of slavery, a lot of things that communities, Latino communities, Filipino American communities that deal with the trauma of migration. So taking into consideration from their own words and narratives, what the needs were. That is the most important part. And so you'll see in that top right corner, they collected lots and lots of information, and these are publicly available. We're also gonna, that website, I'll have maybe Maria or Ania copy in the UC Davis one so that you all can review that as well. But those are available for you to read to see, you know, out of all of these listening sessions that they had with communities, what actually came out of them. And then they had phases 2, 3, and then the evaluation. And I'm gonna let Maria go over those in a little bit more depth. But this was like a 5-year project and they're actually on implementation. Maria, go ahead.
So the model itself, not only did we incorporate the component of the community engagement, the class standards, or again, the class standards are this, in order for an organization to say that they are providing culturally and linguistically appropriate services, they have to meet these standards. So that's what we were helping in this model with our Solano County partners, is around how can they apply the class standards in order to say that they're providing culturally and linguistically appropriate services. Like any organization, part of our goal is to really look at do you want me to talk about the quadruple aim or the phases?
The phases.
Okay.
Sorry, I think there's a little bit of a lag.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. But yes,
So,
we're going over phase 2, phase 3, and evaluation of the previous slide.
So as Brianna talked about, phase 1 was really listening to the community. We created reports, and we'll type in oh, it's already on there on the chat room, the website for that. And then what we did is we took that information that the community was saying, and we created a very customized curriculum to train community leaders, to train community members, people with lived experiences, leaders, staff from the county, from community-based organizations around the class standards and how they can use what the community said and around their mental health needs and any community-defined solutions that they came up with, to think about what could they create or what could be changed at the county level in order to help them meet those needs using the class standards as this model. And so we'll talk about that a little bit and walk you through an example of how you can take one class standard and create an action plan that can help your organization meet that class standard. So that's what we did in phase 2, is we did a lot of trainings with a lot of folks from different areas, from different sectors, public health, faith-based organizations. So we got a lot of people together from a lot of different sectors to think about this, because the more comprehensive your group of folks is from a lot of these different areas, your action plan is going to be stronger because it's going to have voices and perspective from the whole community. Our phase 3 was the implementation of this action plan. So in every training that we did, we helped them develop action plans that would help address the class standards and help address the needs of the community. So we helped them develop about 10 to 13 class standards, and we're working with them to implement that component. And then throughout the whole process, we're helping them evaluate these action plans to see, are they having an impact? Are they making a change? And that's when we looked at the whole project as a whole. Is this model working to make some changes at the organizational level and at the individual level, right? Because we're also looking at improving health outcomes that way. So if you go to the one slide, I don't know, Brianna, do you want to do that piece of what the components are? Or do you want me to do that?
You can go ahead, Maria. I'll take the next one.
Sure. So our whole model, in addition to the class standards and the community engagement, is we really wanted to look at the impact that our intervention was having and that the action plans were having around this more recognized approach of, will it have a better experience for the consumer, for the patient? Any change that we do, is it going to make that experience a lot easier and more accessible? The other aspect of what we call, it's a quadruple aim, so that's why there's 4 components. So the patient experience is important, and then health outcomes. Is it making them healthy? Is it increasing access and utilization of mental health services in our case? And then is it going to be cost effective? So is our intervention, is the training and the development of the action plans really going to yield them less cost in the long run? And then we also wanted to talk about provider experience, because there's a lot of conversations around provider burnout. And so we wanted to look at, are all these changes in the end making that experience for the provider better, making it for the consumers or for the patients, but is it affecting the provider level that then will trickle down to a better experience for the patient.
Thank you, Maria. So we'll go on to the next slide. So as we said, this was a multi-level project. It's a 5-year project. It was kind of at all levels. So the individual level, community level, county systemic, and then taking into consideration those 4 aspects of the quadruple aim. So we did want to give you just some examples of the actual action plans that were created. So one of them is a community-focused example action plan. So it's called Partnering with Faith-Based Organizations. So with support from faith-based leaders, they created and provided, or the idea was to create and provide mental health workshops to Filipino, Latino, and LGBTQ+ youth around mental health topics. They provide mental health training to faith leaders to talk about mental health or link someone to services. So this is just an idea to kind of get everyone going and figure out this is kind of what their structure was. Another workforce-focused example was the ongoing class assessment. So develop a way to see how well an organization is meeting the class standards. Identify where gaps are and set up a process for making changes to close those gaps. And then another that is training-focused action plan was frontline staff support. So develop frontline staff trainings with input from staff and community members to improve service delivery to people from these diverse communities. So this is just to get you all thinking about it. This is what was actually done, and some of them are actually being implemented right now, just so that you understand how they got, this is kind of like the end goal. So today we're going to actually walk you through how all of the different cohorts that were actually trained in Solano County, how they actually went through the process to come up with this final kind of product of an action plan. Ragini? Oh, you're muted.
Okay. My laptop is being interesting. Anyway, so let's get started, and we're gonna walk through some examples and like basically show you that this is kind of what the action plan. We're gonna go through each of those bullet points individually with the examples of each. So one of the first things that we're gonna go through to create the outline is coming up with a class standard, a focus. As I said earlier when we were talking about class standards, we have 15, I think there's 15 of them. The one that our example is gonna focus on is standard 14, which is creating conflict and grievance resolution processes that are culturally and linguistically appropriate to identify, prevent, and resolve conflicts or complaints. Their main categories: the governance, leaderships, communication, language assistance, engagement, and accountability. And those are the 3 main categories, the slides that you saw. And within those, they have specific standards. And then from one of them, whichever one that you feel that you would like to focus on, that's one of the first steps to creating that outline. And then we're gonna go into community needs. So what you wanna, like we also said earlier, that there's 2 communities that we're gonna be focusing on. There's the immigration population and diverse communities in the criminal justice system. So thinking about that, what about like the subcategories of those communities? Like, let's say if I would want personally, if I was to focus on the immigration population, Tay. So you can also dive in deeper and kind of hone in on the specific community, and then think about what their needs are. What are the main disparities and reasons for the intervention? You want to determine the needs by conducting a community assessment, needs assessment, for example, like holding a listening session or a focus group, speaking directly to communities and key stakeholders and like representatives of communities. And for now, you just want to think about the previous needs that you've heard from the community that you would like to focus on, any experiences that you've had with them, and any research you came across. The example that we have is that based off of the class standard 14, and focusing on non-English speaking consumers. So not enough non-English speaking consumers speak up about their negative experiences with providers because their limited language capacity doesn't allow them to the opportunity to comprehensively explain their experience on paper. hopefully so far this is starting to make sense. We're just going like bullet point throughout the outline. And then we're gonna dive into doing it, like trying it all ourselves. To the next thing.
Can I make a point about the class standard? So when you think about the class standard that you're really passionate about, that you really believe in, sometimes you'll find that your action plan will hit across multiple standards. So think about the topic of the class standard or the theme of the class standard that you're more interested, like workforce. Like that's something you're really passionate about. Not necessarily has to be one specific class standard. It can just encompass all 3 of them or 4 of them, whatever fall in that category.
Okay, so when we're thinking about the goal, what is the main thing that you hope to accomplish with your plan and intervention as far as creating a grievance process? So the example that we have here is create a more culturally and linguistically appropriate conflict and grievance resolution process for your organization that allows anyone to voice their concerns comfortably and instantly. So that's the main goal for this standard, is to create a grievance resolution process. Now, when you think about intervention, what this saying is, in one sentence statement, what is the actual intervention that will be implemented in order to achieve your goal? So what do you have to do in order to achieve this goal that you have? The example that we have here is we're going to create a toll-free number that consumers can call to provide their experience to someone that speaks their language, and have a set process for how to follow up with that consumer after sharing his, her, or their experience.
So, okay, so you've selected the class standard. You've identified that the need specific to that is non-speak. So the class standard is creating a better conflict and grievance resolution. You've identified that your community of need really is the non-speaking consumers. And your goal really is to allow anyone, regardless of language, to be able to access that opportunity to think about what their experience was in that visit, or their visit with their clinicians, so that services can be improved. And then your intervention, you said, okay, well, why don't I create this 1-800 number that people can call in and speak to someone in their own language, versus filling out a piece of paper in like a Spanish, English, and it's still not, it might not necessarily be comfortable to them. So think about then, what component of that vision of this 1-800 number or 1-800 process like is what you want to really focus on and think about. It's what we're calling your one detail component. So make sure that that component of the intervention is very specific, something that you can do, very specific, that is measurable. That means we can determine at the end of the time frame that you were able to accomplish that is achievable, means that there are realistic expectations with that. Also realistic in that sense, time limited. So if you only have 3 months to get something done, that your one component falls within that 3 months or sooner. And accountable, that there is someone there that can help you get that job done, and someone can be responsible for that one component. So in our specific example, we really wanted to focus on the contract that your organization or this hypothetical organization needs to have with the translation and interpreting services company. So we're thinking maybe, okay, in 3 months, we will create a contract with them, and also create a process for creating an automated message in about 5 different languages. And the languages are based on the community that you're serving. So we just hypothetically picked 5, but it could be a lot more than that. And then a process for how are the people on the other end of the phone call, what is that script they have to follow? What questions would they have to ask the consumer about their experience? So then that could be transcribed into a report for your organization to read in English, so that there's that continuity of care there. You can go to the next one. So you have this one detail component, and that's just hypothetical. You can kind of shape it any way you want. But then you got to think about, okay, what is it going to take to make this vision of this grievance and complaint process come to life? What are those requirements? What are some resources that you're going to need? Like, what is that full picture? So if you look at your screen, we did it in kind of steps. And within each step, you'd have to stop and think about who's going to be responsible for that. What is it going to take to be able to get that? Am I going to have to go through HR? Is this a supervisor thing? Who would be responsible? So in this example of the grievance resolution process, better process, we think, okay, step one is first we have to make sure that there is a conflict and grievance coordinator in place. Someone who's going to coordinate all these efforts for folks, right? If there's not one already, a lot of organizations have a conflict and grievance coordinator, and maybe it's a matter of thinking, are they full-time? Or are they doing this just in addition to their work? Maybe there's negotiation around, can that person be, have a set time allocated to this particular task so that things don't slip through the cracks, right? So that's step one. Step two, and it's that, it's working with the organization to contract with that company. That was our detail component that we really wanted to flesh out, to contract with them to find a company that will help take that information from the folks. Step three is to create a large size, visually appealing, kind of like a marketing for this toll-free number that we want to create, or this new grievance resolution process. So something that is the way they're walking out the door of their appointment. It's something really visual that says in 5 different languages, how was your visit? We want to hear about it. And then again, you have to think about what are the HR processes that might go into being allowed to put in that, or who would be responsible for updating that if the language shifts in the community later on. And then you have step 4, which is then you have to work with the contracted company to transcribe the conversation and the complaint and then send it to the grievance coordinator. So there's that component of taking it back to the organization to do something about it. Step 5 is then the coordinator reviews that information, follows up with the consumer for any additional questions that might be needed. For example, they might have left out some information that was essential to being able to identify how to fix the problem or how to identify the solution for that. And again, you got to think about how often this is going to happen, what's a turnaround time for that, who else needs to be involved, etc. And then step 6 of this would be that the coordinator then provides the reports and updates to a committee. Again, this goes back to accountability. Who's responsible for this? And in this organization, it would be a committee that maybe is formed. And then you think about who needs to be in that committee that has that power to make changes and decisions around the changes that will trickle down from the complaints and grievances that happen. And then the final step is, because we're so invested in the community and making sure that they know that we are invested in their feedback, is to then have the coordinator loop back with the consumer, and maybe their next couple of visits, they have 2 visits in between, we can ask them, hey, you know, how did that go? Tell me about this experience. Did you notice any difference, etc.
Thank you. Okay, and so final step that we want you all to think about is evaluation and metrics. So how can you actually measure the outcomes of the plan that we've just created? So how do you evaluate the effect of the intervention, right? Because that's important. A lot of you, some of you are just community members who are very active in advocacy, and so it's important to bring the research to the table to policymakers and let them know, like, you should be funding this because these are the outcomes that we found. So it is very important to keep track of that so that you actually know, is your action plan having the effect that was intended? So an example is within the last 6 months, right, we're gathering information about the community, or let's say the community clinic's grievances. And it's included, including but not limited to, right? So you can have a lot of different measures. That's what we want you to break up into small groups for too. We know a lot of you have expertise in research. A lot of you have expertise in academia. So depending on your role, you'll have different ideas on what to measure and on what's important. So just some examples are number of grievances per week or per month, demographic information for those individuals that are putting grievances in. Who are we hearing from? Who are we not hearing from? Types of grievances, so like the nature of the complaints could also be something measured. And then 6 months after the implementation, you compare the same data points to determine what were the changes. So that's just an idea to get you started to think about evaluation and metrics and how we actually determine what is the impact of the action plan. So we ran through that pretty quickly, but if you all have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box. We're also, all 4 of us are here to answer questions. So at this point, we would like you to select by writing into the chat box. And this is going to take a little bit of time because there's quite a few of you, but please write into the chat box which topic for both. So which population. So if you want to work with immigrant populations, that would be 1. And if you want to focus in on diverse communities within the criminal or juvenile justice system, that would be 2. And then we're going to have you also pick which of the 3 kind of class standards subsections do you most identify with. So do you want to work on something in regard to governance, leadership, and workforce? Do you want to work on communications and language assistance? Or do you want to work on engagement, continuous improvement, and accountability? So it would be, an example would be if I want to work on criminal justice and communications and language assistance, I would do 2B. So I see a lot of you are starting to write into the chat box. If you do not write into the chat box, you will be put into a group randomly, and that's totally fine. If you don't have a preference, that's fine too. What also may happen is that there may only be 2 or 3 people for one of the categories, and if that's the case, we'll write to you directly, and we'll ask you to pick one of the other 2 just so that we can have large enough groups. And so what we'll be doing is we'll be splitting you into these groups. And then the 4 of us as facilitators will be coming into the breakout session rooms, and it will be your task to go through what we talked about and create your own quality improvement action plan. And so what we'll do is we'll be stopping in, we'll be checking in on you, how's it going? Feel free to ask your questions then. And then we'll be kind of moving in and out of the small groups. And answering any questions that you have. So right now what we're going to do, just so that we can have a little bit of time to set everything up, feel free to take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene at 2:47. Feel free to actually go away from your computer and take a break, or you can use this time to review the class standards as well, or any of the information that we posted in those links. So we'll go ahead and take that break in the meantime while I try to get you into the right small group. All right, thank you. We'll be right back.
The host only able to do it?
Yes, I just realized that. So I don't have the option. Ragini, are you able to do it? I can help and make sure that
I can make you a host while I have my screen up.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, awesome. Okay.
Do you mind making me co-host? Sorry.
Oh yes, did it kicked you off? Let's see.
NAMI California, but without the co-host.
There? Okay. All right, so we'll be splitting. Let me see if there's enough. Oh my. Okay, this is gonna be fun. It actually worked out pretty well. There's like nobody for 2B, so that worked fine. I think there will only be 2 groups for each. Okay, let's see.
So there's 6 different breakout rooms, yeah?
Yeah, what might be helpful, Ragini, since we just have a couple minutes left, can you pull up the chat, expand it, and then read off to me?
Yeah, I was just gonna do that.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do 1A.
So,
I just did some extra just in case. And
okay.
what I might do, I'm just gonna do all of them, and then whichever ones don't need them, we'll just leave them as is.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, I can start listing them off.
Okay, I will let you know. Okay, so for 1A.
Mike Madlangbayan. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. Uh-huh.
No, I mean, I'm apologizing to the person.
To them, yes, absolutely. I get it.
Michael Arnott.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, I don't see him.
that
Michael might have dropped off. Anyways, continue. Michael is not on this list.
Arnott. Okay. So then there's Mary Nakamura. Sorry. And that's it for 1A.
Okay.
Yep, that's it for 1A.
Okay. So just 2.
Yeah, besides, yeah, oh no, sorry, okay. So the Lang Bayan, I'm sorry for butchering your name so much. Mike, this person is supposed to be in 1C instead. I just saw the other chat that they send and they meant C, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just Mary then.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Ania or Maria, whoever wants to do it, can you message directly to Mary Nakamura and ask which group she'd like to be in?
Oh, okay. So Michael Arnott says that they're still here. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Oh, I found
A-R-N-O-T.
him.
Okay. Yeah. So that's 1A for sure.
Interesting. I think it's because it says 1A in his name. That's actually very helpful, Michael. Thank you. Okay. So still, that's only the 2. So we'll see. Okay, let's move on to 1B.
Okay. Lillian Liu.
Okay. Lillian.
Jasmine Armenta. Goli Hushvar.
Okay.
Goli Hushvar.
Sorry, you cut off a little bit. I think my connection is being weird. Did you say anybody after goalie?
Yep.
No?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, let's go on to 1C.
Okay. Yvonne Ortiz. YVONNE.
Yvonne Ortiz. Interesting. I'm not sure why not all of them are popping up here. Okay, keep going.
Fausto G. Novello.
Okay,
Andrew Yee.
okay,
That's we're doing 1C still. Melanie Hercules.
uh-huh.
Alan Okamoto.
Okay,
Anne.
uh-huh.
Betty Vu.
Okay,
That's it.
okay. Awesome. So what I'm going to do, Maria, I'm going to put you in that one. Okay, and then what I'm actually going to do is and also thank you everyone for your patience because I know you're all back from your break. We are trying to get everyone into their right breakout session rooms. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine groups 1A and 1B. So because there are some more folks in B, we are actually going to move Mary and Michael into 1B. Hopefully that's okay. Let me go here. Okay, and then we now have 2A.
There's one person just said 2, but without the letters, so
Okay,
let's just go for 2A.
okay,
Sarah Landers.
okay,
Clint Wyrick.
okay,
Chris Roop.
got it.
2A. Jacqueline Duenas.
Okay,
Titlayomi Osoba. I'm so sorry for butchering everyone's names.
okay,
Oh, sorry. So Sarah Landers actually added C, so she would like
okay,
2C instead.
okay.
Thank
Anyone
you,
else
Sarah,
for
for
2A?
letting me know. But that's it for 2A.
That's it, okay. So,
Would you like to continue? Another person commented for the number 1 group, like 1A.
sorry, what was that, Ragini?
There's another person that just recently commented 1A, or chatted into 1A. Are those groups already made, or?
Yes, so for 1, we only have B and C options.
Okay.
Which one would you like to be in? We'll wait for the response. Okay, for 2B, Ragini?
Okay, 2B. I don't see any 2Bs.
Okay, that one was the one that I think I had seen that there was no one, which is fine. That's even better.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot
okay.
of 2Cs.
Lots of 2Cs. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let's do that one, and then we'll get everyone into their rooms.
Yeah, so Sarah Landers was supposed to be in 2C.
Okay.
Bianca Clary.
Okay.
Marilyn Mochel.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Tanya Castaneda.
Okay.
Erica Alvarez.
Erica, yes.
Regina Droll.
Okay.
Naisa Villa.
Nice.
Katrina Tavernier.
Mm-hmm.
Landers. Crystal Bleicher.
Okay.
Michael Legacy.
Okay.
That's fine. And then, yeah, that's it. And then Gustavo mentioned any group is fine.
Okay. That's helpful. For 2C, Ania, I'm going to put you in that one. Okay. And then, so that's all that I have. And there are some extras. So like folks that did not sign up for any. So I will randomly place the ones who are left into different small groups. Okay. Awesome. And if for some reason you end up in the incorrect small group, so we have 1B, 1C, 2A, and 2C. If for some reason you end up in the wrong one, just type into the chat box and I'll have my facilitators send me a quick note. All right.
Thank you everyone for your patience, and I'm sorry for butchering a bunch of your names.
Okay, so every group is going to have about 10 people, which is great. And then Ragini, I don't know which one you are because I know Angela is already on. So I'm just going to put you and Angela in the same one. Okay. You are 2A, I think. Yes.
There's another response from someone who recently entered Bethany Villa for 2C.
Okay, sorry, what was that? Bethany for 2C?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all so much for your patience. So we so appreciate it. Okay, Bethany is moving to 2C. Okay. All right, we have done it. Congratulations to everyone. I am going to move you into your breakout groups. Again, we encourage this to be a discussion, a chat. There's a lot of members, community members, there's a lot of leadership, there's a lot of folks who are therapists. Use this time to, cross collaborate and talk about what an action plan would look like across all of these different backgrounds. So we encourage you to talk, to share with each other, even if you just do it through the chat box. If you want to show your video, if you want to just do the mic, up to you entirely. So I'm going to break us into those small groups. And then a facilitator will either be with you at the beginning or will move to you shortly. All right. Thank you.
Hello everyone. You can unmute yourselves or type into the chat box. Whichever one you're comfortable with. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to pull up my PowerPoint again, just so that kind of have like the steps of the action plan. So we're supposed to go over the class standards to focus, whichever one y'all want to kind of talk and see which class standard interested you. We are in, I believe it was 1A, 2A. Is it 2A or 1A? I am trying to Second. 2A. Okay, so we're 2A. Not sure why I didn't remember that. All right, so since we're in 2A, we're going to be talking about the diverse communities in criminal justice system. So we're going to be looking into that population and governance, leadership, and workforce. So I'm going to pull up the class standard for governance, leadership, and workforce right here. Hopefully that helps. You can either write this down yourself, or we can just kind of put it all into the chat box and see which ones you want to focus on. It's up to y'all to decide if you want to just have the umbrella category of governance, leadership, and workforce, or maybe either go into standard 2, 3, or 4. Go ahead and, decipher that. You can always unmute yourself or just type into the chat box. Does anyone have an idea which ones they would like to try? See if I can.
I say, dude, when you recruit and promote and support a culturally and linguistically diverse governance, you get more of a diverse population in government, okay? And that brings about, let's say, a more diverse or well-rounded point of view. I think the point of view of doesn't become so narrow-minded, if what I said makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because it didn't to me once I repeated it.
No worries, you're fine. So you think standard number 3, recruit, promote, and support a cultural, linguistic, diverse governance, leadership, and workforce. It offers more diversity and more like experiences, broad experiences of various, and then like bringing that into the workforce. Is that what you're kind of trying to say?
Yes, because quite often, sometimes government can be very narrow-minded in their approach to everything. Kind of one type of scenario fits all.
Okay. And then I saw that Jacqueline also said that number 3 is something we should focus on because it's hard to get by in when people don't see themselves in those who they are working with. Yeah, having the familiar face is something that's a huge disparity and very common because if you're trying to go to get therapy, or if you as a consumer or even as a family member, if you're trying to find support, and sometimes it's hard to gauge like how to talk to someone because there's just not that familiarity. So it's important to have like diverse backgrounds in the workforce and leadership and stuff. So I definitely agree. Anyone else have any other thoughts? Is everyone okay with choosing number 3? You can chat or speak. No one. Hi, Chris. Okay, so I got a thumbs up. Someone said like number 4 because it is ongoing. Educate and train governance, leadership, workforce, and cultural and linguistic appropriate policies and practice on an ongoing basis. Yes.
I think working on 3 and 4 are both important because I agree with the comment about individuals need to be able to see themselves in the leadership and those that are supporting them. But I also believe the ongoing education and training is important, because this is not a check the box and we're done type of work. We have got to, as language improves, as resources develop, as things just in our social environments change and evolve, we need to constantly be aware of what those changes are and stay up to date. So I agree with the comment about the ongoing component. It keeps everybody accountable for appropriate leadership as well.
I think it's good to, like, we can focus on both 3 and 4, and then maybe build something around them, because as I'm not sure if y'all remember, Maria said before, sometimes you can just pick the category and whatever falls underneath that is something you can create an action plan around. Like, you can customize it to your own, like, needs of your organization and what they're trying to accomplish. So yeah, so let's move forward. If everyone's okay with that, we can go into community needs. I'll pull up the example right here. So basing on number 3 and 4, the having, you know, cultural and linguistic appropriateness in leadership and having a familiarity, and then also the importance on ongoing education and training. Based off of this, what do you think? Is there a community within the criminal justice system that you either want to focus on, or do you want to keep it broad? And then, like, what needs have you heard from diverse communities in the criminal justice system? What have you heard and seen that they're saying this is what we need to get, like, you know, the best care that they can get before just even being incarcerated, or instead of being incarcerated? So. Keep it broad. Okay. One person mentioned keep it broad. Anyone else? Okay. So yeah, we can just keep it to diverse communities in the criminal justice system instead of really focusing in and stuff. Just with just being mindful that all diverse communities. So based off of, let's say, if we do keep it broad, like, what have each of you heard or experienced and seen what that diverse community in the criminal justice system needs? Like, what are the main disparities or needs for, like, an intervention that we want to create? Let's say that's for that's between the class standards, so like governance, leadership, and workforce. Within that, what needs have you seen? Have diverse communities in the criminal justice system expressed, or have you heard? That makes sense. Pull up class standard again. Oh, sorry. So a couple of needs that I've seen personally within the criminal justice system with that specific those class standards is like how Tiffany Ross earlier today was speaking on, like, having training and, like, moving into having crisis teams and things like that. So so that, you know, individuals of diverse communities don't end up incarcerated or in a place that wouldn't suit them or really benefit them in any way besides just being incarcerated. So so I feel that like a need that I've seen often is just having like mental health court or training the officers on how to like appropriately respond, and with mental for mental illnesses or what other needs are like the language itself, having officers or having a mental health advocate be like come from a cultural background as well. So those are a couple ideas that came in my head.
Yeah, I like the idea of the mental health advocate being, you know, having some cultural diversity, because without understanding of that, decisions can be made and resources can be offered. But if no one really understands the individual's cultural perceptions about treatment, and then what is their support system like when they, it just in general, while they're still in custody or even upon reentry, if things are extended to them that aren't going to be applicable when they leave, how helpful is that? What is the long-term impact? It's going to be very short-term, and we're going to see recidivism. Where if we can extend culturally appropriate options and then connect back into the community, whether it be their family, their faith, whatever their connections are, their support connections are, I think they have a better success of maintaining recovery and not returning. But we can't hear you. You're not on mute, Regini, but we can't hear you.
So, okay,
There it
my
is.
laptop is having a mind of its own today. It updated this morning, and I don't know.
Welcome to the world of Zoom, because
I know.
I think to many of us.
Oh, okay, so this is normal. Okay, cool.
It happens.
So then it's Zoom. It's not my laptop that I have to be worried about.
That's the quote for 2020. You're on mute.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. It's like, hello, can I hear? It's like Skype all over again. When
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's important that whatever, again, I like the idea of having a mental health advocate, so not necessarily a mental health provider, but an advocate that's aware of the variances within cultures and what types of opportunities are extended, what options are given to that individual, and what, if we extend things, are they available in the community when they leave?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I guess a community need would be to have the appropriate mental health advocates serving the individuals who have been incarcerated in the criminal justice system.
And maybe they're cultural brokers that are truly dedicated to work with the justice system. And those brokers can not only are they there to work with the individual that is in custody receiving treatment, but they're also an integral part of educating and identifying appropriate personnel, but educating the leadership team as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of one of the most important things, is just finding the right kind of bridge. You have to find the bridge that will like make sure that the gap's not there. A comment is, there's so much going on, unable to anticipate new needs ahead of time. Many subcultures exist, understanding trauma on both ends. Okay. Do you, would you like to, is that like the needs that you thought of, Jay? Yes, many subcultures exist, understanding trauma on both ends. Would you like to elaborate on trauma on both ends? Are you speaking on trauma for law enforcement and also trauma for consumers? Both. Okay, I was right. Okay, cool. I was just making sure that you were speaking about law enforcement and then also the other end and stuff. Yeah, definitely it's a huge need to understand that you know, both sides are human beings, and both of them, you know, are going through the experiences. And, you know, sometimes we forget that there are times where I've seen that, like, I have had people I've talked to and they're like, oh, it's just kind of what I've been told to do. This is what I was trained on. And it's how Tiffany mentioned that it's not ignorance on a level that's negative. It's just, it's almost like you're not sure. There's not enough knowledge to kind of act in an appropriate way. So I think that's where we were talking about having a mental health advocate or having a crisis team or things like that, is where those gaps will bridge, so that there aren't many misunderstandings, or that more individuals aren't just immediately incarcerated, instead should be going to mental health court or things like that. Yeah, so okay, awesome, that's great. Looks like there's a lot of needs, and one of the main needs is that there needs to be a bridge and bridging the gaps. And then I guess when we move into a goal, so the main goal that you hope to accomplish with your plan and intervention. So the main goal is that we're trying to bridge, trying to find individuals or a systematic structure that would be able to bridge the gaps between, you know, from the time of the arrest to where where the process goes or where they end up. Am I saying that correctly? Is that something that we can also all understand, or is there other ways that you want to put it into a sentence? I know we came up with a couple of different needs, but if we were to choose one, and then based off of the broad diverse communities that we're doing, and based off of workforce and leadership, what is a goal that you have combining all of those three things? We're kind of building off of each step. So.
I think a goal would be to identify culturally appropriate mental health advocates, to extend support for recruiting and developing and training workforce and leadership, to bridge the individual's needs from custody back to the community to reduce recidivism.
Okay, that's really well said. I wish I typed that up.
I can try one more time. Can't promise you it'll come out the same.
It's all good.
I think it would be to identify culturally appropriate mental health advocates, to support recruiting, training, and developing both the workforce and leadership, to help the individual receive culturally appropriate resources that start within the criminal justice system, bridged over into the community in an effort to reduce recidivism.
Sorry, after criminal justice system, you said something about community?
Yes, that bridges them to the community in an effort to reduce recidivism.
I'm not sure how to spell recidivism. I can't even say it.
I think recidivism is RECIVIDISM.
Okay. I might have missed some words here and there, but I'm pretty sure I got the gist.
I think it's also important to focus on, when we're talking about the workforce, much like Tiffany, I also train law enforcement and first responders, and every time we train people coming straight out of the academy and they want to go into law enforcement, they have the most earnest wholesome reasons for going into law enforcement. But I think through the course of their careers, they tend to get jaded with the situations and the traumas that they experience all the time. And so we have all these issues with the way law enforcement tends to respond after being in law enforcement for a while. And I think part of the ongoing training and cultural sensitivity needs to be surrounding the officer self-care, and the officer safety needs to include officer self-care, because if they can't realize their traumas themselves, then that's going to manifest itself in the way they treat the community, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does, Jacqueline. And I too do a lot of training with law enforcement and in Fresno, and we say the exact same thing to them in every opportunity we can. If you are not well, you put yourself at risk, in addition to the members of our community. So it really does start with the officer taking care of themselves, because then they are able to better understand the cultural differences in our community with the members they encounter, and not just from a mental health crisis perspective, but really all the components of that individual. Very, very good point. When we talk about workforce, it does start with them as an individual.
It's true. I think that's kind of like something that that reiterates to what Jay was saying, like understanding the trauma on both sides, understanding, you know, like, you know, in the end, regardless of, you know, our titles, we're all human beings, and we kind of like the way that we perceive and the things that happen cognitively in our heads. And, you know, and so that's something that we always have to be aware of, especially, you know, if you are armed and, you know, you are trained to be a certain way. And sometimes, you know, that could be conflicting for some individuals. I've seen that happen. And then I think that's one of the things that we're doing ourselves in NAMI, California, is that we have like a post-grant. I think, Chris, I'm not sure if you've heard of it already from Brianna, where we're like, yeah, talking about training the officers, training the officers and stuff. Yeah. So that's something that we are like implementing already, and building a curriculum around that, on how to take care of yourself, and officers need that support too. So yeah, awesome. Let's move on before we get called back. Intervention. So an actual intervention that will be implemented in order to achieve your goal. So like an example that you can create, like an actual plan that you can try to create that would support your goals and the class standards and the needs. So like for the example, it was to create a toll-free number that consumers can call to provide the experience. Our goal is to identify culturally appropriate mental health advocates to support recruit training and developing workforce. So what would be a good intervention for that goal? Or how can we make that goal happen, I guess? So like maybe having like a resource list, or like like culturally like diverse mental health advocates. That's a small little intervention. There might be other ways too. Reach out to the community and brainstorm with consumers to avoid further occurrences.
Are you heading out? Was it quiet while you were here? Yes. It was quiet. It was busy yesterday.
Does anyone have an idea of something that, like a small plan that could be created to reach the goal? How can we identify culturally mental health advocates to support recruiting and training and developing workforce leadership?
Well, I think like anything, it's going to begin with understanding your population. Obviously, the population of each facility or each criminal justice system is not going to be the same from state to state to region. So in order to think about what culturally enlightened, culturally aware advocates you need to know what cultures are your main facets, what kind of populations you're dealing with first, and then maybe even reaching out into those communities to find their mental health leaders to see, okay, like, you know, maybe I work with a predominantly Armenian group. Okay, well, we're going to go into the Armenian communities. We're going to see, you know, how they handle their mental health and see if maybe we can bring either some of those individuals to help us with our advocacy within those facilities, or some of those practices to our existing advocates.
Okay. Okay. So collaborating and like doing like your background research and then collaborating with community key stakeholders or community brokers to kind of identify, or that's to identify if they would be open to learning more and being an advocate, mental health advocate for individuals in the criminal justice system. Is that kind of what you're going for?
Right. Like, because we're talking about culturally appropriate mental health advocates. And so we have to first identify what culturally appropriate is in our demographic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe collaborating to reach out to make sure that we are actually being culturally appropriate, because, you know, as a, like myself, I'm Hispanic female, I can decide that, you know, I think the Armenian culture means this, this, and this, but I'm not the expert. So we need to reach out to those experts to make sure that our, like, they need to be at the table to determine what is culturally appropriate. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Appropriate. For so like reach communities and cultural brokers, experts to determine what is culturally appropriate for mental health advocacy, and like kind of recruiting them as like leadership roles, kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also having that collaboration existing will help with the transitioning from the criminal justice system back into the community. Because if you've already reached out to those agencies and you already have a relationship with those community agencies or those faith-based organizations or whatever it may be, then the transition might be smoother from what the consumer is experiencing in the criminal justice system versus what they're getting when they get back to their community.
Right. That's true. That's a really good point. It would be best to go into the community, speak to them, see, you know, where they are, stuff, and what is needed. And so you're hitting the community needs, and you're also, you know, trying to build an intervention to see like, okay, are you like, you know, this is what your community needs, this is how much you know, and then would you be able to be a leader on that, and then help your community not end up in the criminal justice system as much, you know? So
right,
be like, yeah, that's really good, thank you. All right, so I guess we have our intervention down. Let's go move on into one detailed component. So a detailed component could just be something specific, and like specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time limited, accountable. It's kind of like Jacqueline, what you were saying, just kind of like actually going into a specific community, just specific community member or like a cultural broker of the community, and then speaking with them and maybe having an interview or something like that. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if I were to write the one detailed component, it would be We will interviews diverse. So like we will have interviews with diverse community cultural experts to determine to assess and determine like the needs and the advocacy, right? Is that, I'm trying to build a sentence for everyone.
I'm not the eloquent one. We might have to go back to Chris to put it back together for us.
Chris, are you there? She might have, I think she was talking to someone just a second ago, so. Yeah, reach community to determine culture. So we will have, like, let's say you have, I don't know, 3 interviews with 3 different racial community cultural experts, kind of, because we're trying to make it as specific as possible. That's kind of what the component is. You want to make it as specific as possible so that it is accomplishable and measurable and achievable and like it's realistic, and then want to make sure there's a certain amount of time that you want to do this. So it's like that specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time limit, accountable is a SMART plan. I'm not sure if any of you've heard the SMART plan. That's when you create like a specific detailed sentence saying that, oh, this is what I'm going to do at this exact time, and we will measure it this way. So that's kind of what this one detailed component will encompass, is having like kind of more specific details on how you will have that, how you'll implement that intervention.
I understand the SMART goals. Like, I have been beaten over the head with SMART goals. Oh, we only have a minute left. Ah.
Oh no. Well,
so I would just go with like a generic, within the first, however many days, within the first 30 days, we'll reach out to the 3 majority cultural groups of the area to interview and assess the needs of that community, the available resources, and the specific interventions that would benefit that community. Sorry, I'm stuck.
No, it's okay. I kind of got half of that, but then didn't get to all of it. It's okay. It's no problem. I really appreciate everyone taking the time and really diving into this. And I know we didn't get to complete it, but that's kind of the whole point, is this, it takes a while, so.
Sorry, I know it kicked you out. Hopefully you weren't still in the middle of your conversations. But I'm just gonna go ahead and let Ragini close up. I know some of you may have to leave. It's already 3:30, so if you have somewhere else to be, definitely don't feel bad if you have to hop off. But I'll let Ragini close it out. And thank you so much, Maria and Ania. I appreciate you facilitating these breakouts. Oh, Ragini's muted again. It's okay.
So yeah, I found out that it's not my laptop, it's Zoom that's playing games with me. Oh well. Anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to, something that I was mentioning right before we came into the main room was that the action plan, even like our group wasn't able to finish the whole action plan, but that's kind of like the main point, is that this is the amount of work it requires and the amount of conversations that are needed to create a sustainable action plan that will actually be beneficial to the community. So that's kind of like, I even though we didn't get to finish, I feel like that's a benefit and something you'll be able to see how much work it requires. But yeah, it was amazing. So thank you so much for everyone for being here today. We truly appreciate it and all your participation. I hope you found that interaction piece a little more comforting, and like, but we're able to gain some knowledge from others, and I think that's pretty amazing. I liked it so far. I loved having to hear what others had to say and what the ideas that they were coming up with. And then thank you again for Tiffany. I'm not sure if she's still on or not, but thank you for Tiffany for presenting and for giving us your insight on training, and then like finding the middle ground and the balance between and combining two different opinions together and how we can balance it all out. So just to kind of wrap it up, tomorrow we are going to have a panel, and we're going to have a self-care activity. It's going to be a really fun, informative self-care activity. Also, it's going to be interactive. We're going to get into breakouts again. So if you're interested, please join us tomorrow. If not, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have gotten emails from me in the past couple of weeks, but I'll put it into the chat box real quick. So there's my email, and
Megan,
then
did you already get a chance to also put Tiffany's in there?
Yeah, I was gonna do that in the follow-up email. Yeah,
Got it.
I'm gonna have a page of all the panelists, all the speakers we've had in the symposium, their bios, and then if they provided any contact info, and I'm gonna put that all in there. So everyone's gonna be able to have them either at the end of Friday or on Monday. So yeah, so that's it. That's all there is for today. Thank you for being here again, and we will either see you tomorrow, or I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.